Hi, I'm Ken Navarro, and you're listening to my podcast, all about the music. Greetings, everybody. This is now the 9th episode of a series that I'm doing where I take you through how I created, how I recorded, how I orchestrated a new song that I'm working on for what will be my 28th album. So in our 8th episode, I showed you how I wrote the ending, and that pretty much concluded that group of episodes. So today, I wanted to talk a little bit about how it is that I'm taking the 22 songs that I've written for this album, and I'm bringing them down to 12, maybe 13 songs that'll be on the final album. So first off, I just want to say this is a little different for me, the way that I did this album. Normally, I write pretty much exactly what music will be on an album. And things that aren't going to be on the album just never get very far. This time was a little different. Every time I had an idea, I pursued it. And in the end, some of those ideas were completely worked out, and other ideas were taken a certain distance, and then I wouldn't say abandoned, but moved on from in an effort to work on something else that was of interest to me. So the process has been different going in, but I must say it's been really good because it's allowed me to keep working on new material and moving forward and not censoring myself in any way, or not, I guess maybe a better way of putting it is not editing myself in such a way that something never gets taken any farther because it's not sounding great out the gate, which can happen. You know, you write something and you just know right away this is going to be really good, and it's going to not write itself, but it's going to come naturally to me. And then other things can feel like they're going against the grain. Maybe they're causing me to have to use some skills or actually make some skills that I don't currently have, either as a composer or maybe even as a guitarist. But of course, that's part of the fun and part of the challenge, is to continue to get better and better at this. I have been so fortunate to have been able to pursue the creation of new music for the better part of 30 years, and I consider that a gift. And part of my responsibility as an artist is to do my very best to continue to make new music and to get better and better at creating that new music and going some new places so that things stay interesting for me and the listener. And you have to keep trying to give listeners who have supported you all these years something new, something different. But honestly, for myself, if it's not fun and interesting to me, then it's just good music will not be created. If I'm not inspired and enjoying what I'm doing, it's simply not going to translate into great music. So anyway, back to what I did with this project. Once I had these 22 songs pretty much together, I took a little break of about a week. I didn't want to listen to anything. And then I did. I went back, and it was pretty obvious to me right away which ones were pretty much done and belonged on the album, and which ones were not, but which ones might if I put more work into them. And then I spent the better part of the next month working those in specifically 4 songs that I felt could get there with more work. One of them was the song KN16 that I just did the 8 episodes on. So, and then there were other songs that, even though they were more or less finished, in the context of an album, they didn't really hold together. It wasn't so much that I didn't think they were good or good enough. It was more that I didn't think they were going to work in the context of the songs that were clearly the winners in my mind. And so that was a pretty big criteria. How does it all fit together? Because to me, an album, whether you listen to it one song at a time or whether you listen to it as a unit, which is how I write it to be listened to, an album is a story, and things should cohesively work together from one song to the next. That doesn't mean that there shouldn't be surprises or left turns. But it does mean that you want to think of it as a story, and whether this is going to really tell the story of musically and to some degree personally where my life is and has been during the course of the creation of this album. So anyway, I have it down to what I think is going to be 12 songs on the album, about 50 minutes of music or so, maybe a little bit more. And that's where it's at right now. So I wanted to give you this update, give you some insights as to how I am working on this album, but also tell you I'm going to take a break from doing these podcasts because now I have some real work to do, taking these 12, possibly 13 songs and just totally finalizing them. I may bring in a player or two to complement what I've done. There's already some players on a couple of the songs. I may bring in more. I'm not sure yet, but that's what I need to dig in and do now. I am still shooting for a late winter, early spring release, and that's what I'm almost certain I'm going to do because the album's coming along really well. I can tell you that I'm just super excited about this. I think that this way of working has generated some of my best music. And I'm very happy about that. It's been more work, as you can imagine, but that's okay. I don't mind hard work. To me, it's all about that final product. Some of you get it, you listen and you hear all the details and you really appreciate what went into it. Some of you just hear the song and the melody and you either like it or you don't, and that's fine too. Of course, I love it when people write me and they clearly are really listening to what I've done. But, you know, I understand as a listener, I listen first and foremost to whether the song moves me, does something for me. And that's the first criteria always. And I look at my own music that way, too, for what it's worth. So anyway, I'm going to take a break from these podcasts. I will come back when I'm a little farther along in this process and very near the end, most likely, and share with you some information about that part of the process. But I hope if you haven't already, that you go and listen to all 8 of the episodes for how I wrote and recorded and arranged this song that I'm still calling KN16 for now. That's just a working title because I think there's a lot of information in there. And I did a video for every one of those too with all kinds of visual aids to help those of you follow what I'm talking about. So anyway, thanks for listening. I hope this was of use to you and of interest to you as well. And I will talk to you again when I'm a little farther down the road and closer to the finish line. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Again, I'm Ken Navarro, and this is my podcast all about the music.